I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order on Thursday, December 18th, 2025 at 5:30 PM. Roll call.
Harfier.
Idler,
Berto.
Baxter,
And Patrice is on.
Oh, Shampoo.
Muted.
Patrice, are you muted?
Yes, I'm trying to figure it out.
Hear you now. Okay. Shampoo is here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Harv, second by Heidler. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approve the meeting minutes of November 25th, 2025. Does anybody have any questions, comments, corrections?
I get myself unmuted.
motion to approve.
Motion by Heidler,
Second.
second by Harv. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. I don't remember seeing anything
No.
in the packet. Is there anybody joining us that would like to address the Plan Commission? And is there anybody online, Sarah?
No.
Okay. I would like to say something. Okay. I would like to take this opportunity to tell Julie how much I have enjoyed having her as our village administrator over the last 3.5 years. She was a breath of fresh air for the village with her extensive knowledge base of zoning and administration. She is the zoning administrator I had been wishing for a decade. Staff was very happy with her as their boss. One employee even told me that they appreciated her so much that she should have a road named after her. And another said she was the best boss they had ever had. Julie is a workhorse, spending countless evenings and weekends keeping up with the demands of the village board and committees. Her work ethic is impeccable, always delivering information to the trustees, no matter how many twists and turns the board threw at her. Her commitment to the village was exceptional. In her tenure here in Sister Bay, she has updated so many sections of the code and policies so that the village is compliant with state statutes and federal law. She is also an out-of-the-box thinker, which was refreshing, as we sometimes struggled to see a clear path forward when the board couldn't make a decision. Julie is the best administrator I have ever worked with. We even became friends. I will miss her sense of humor, her humanity, her empathy, and strength. I wish you all the best as you move forward in the next chapter of your life. I hope that we stay in touch, but as I know all too well, sometimes when the one thing that connects us is no longer there, the friendship fades. So for now, I will say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you have done for the village and for everything you have done to make me a better board member. Thank you, Denise.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment and thank the Harfs and Patrice and you, Denise. You are the 3 trustees that reached out to me, thanked me for my time, recognized me, made me feel valued. It's good to know my work was not, taken lightly and that it was appreciated by some people. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, agenda. 5A, proposed sauna at Door Hotel for wellness event.
Okay. Last year, during the wellness event, the Door Hotel wanted to put a temporary sauna out on the property. They had to go through Plan Commission, so, they're back again this year with their request. I would, recommend if we're inclined to grant this, that, perhaps we not require them to come back every year, might be something we think about. This year, the sauna is a little bigger than the one they had last year. It looks actually quite a bit bigger, but, they are flexible on where it would be located. Ellie from SBA even said perhaps they could put it in the parking lot if we were okay with that. Last year when we reviewed it, the concern we had was when they drive over the village, that they might drive over the village property to erect the sauna, because it was gonna be in the front yards. And we were concerned about potential damage to our property. So that was conditioned that if damage occurred, they'd have to fix it. There was no damage. The village property we were concerned about is right at the corner of Bay Shore Drive and Mill Road. We actually own that little corner with the sidewalks that sits in front of CHOP. So other than that, you do have a copy of the application. The applicant is here if there's questions. SBA, who is one of the event sponsors, is also here if we have questions.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so actually, I just want to clarify that this is the first year for the Winter Wellness Weekend in Sister Bay. So this is the first year that, Sister Bay Advancement is doing an entire Winter Wellness Weekend, and we've asked our businesses to host kind of various wellness events for residents and for visitors to come in and do. So, when we had started brainstorming this idea and what potential activities we would like, and knowing that the Door had done the sauna before, like we had asked them if they'd be interested in trying to, into doing that again for the Winter Wellness Weekend. Or the inaugural Winter Wellness Weekend for Sister Bay Advancement. And I know, when we had gone back, via email for a little bit, I know that, when the time that our contract, the SBA contract went into place, we hadn't officially, our board hadn't officially approved this event yet, so that was one of the reasons why it wasn't included on the 26 contract, with the village, between the village and SBAA, but.
Thanks for clarifying. So last year, James, it was just a private event.
Correct.
Got it.
So does the winter wellness, will it travel every year to different, last year it was someplace else, this year it's in Sister Bay, next?
No, I mean, this is the first year, this is just a brand new event, that we are kicking off.
Okay,
And so then, we're hoping that as it grows and evolves, and we're hoping year to year, that we can make it bigger, add other activities, maybe we're having, I know too, there's kind of a couple different speakers coming in, like Dr. Johnson from Door County Medical is gonna be doing a fireside chat on healthy living. We have different fitness classes at a couple of our other businesses, but all the events are kind of different, they're happening inside different, at our business partners.
okay. So it will be included next year,
Mhm.
okay. What runs the sauna? Is it electric? Is there a generator on it?
It is Woodbury.
Okay. But how do all the lights work and everything else in it?
Light is electric, correct, which we
Okay.
would have.
So there'll be extension cords?
Yes,
That's Woodbury. So the cords would be a concern, I'm sure a concern of yours also, you don't want anybody to trip on your own property.
Was the sauna last year wood burning also?
the sauna last year was not, no, that was radiant heat, so this is a different form of this year. We wanted to have the same gentleman back this year, he had a scheduling conflict, so this is a new sauna for us as well. Currently, the sauna is placed up at Ironwood Yoga. So if anybody wanted to see it, it's there right now, and that's where it's going to live this winter. No, this would just be for the wellness weekend, and then it will be back up at Iron.
And how long is it?
I do have an email that I'll apologize, I don't have that directly in front of me. It is an Airstream. It is not a very large Airstream, it's probably mid-size. Capacity for the actual sauna itself is up to 8 people.
Okay,
Do you remember being able, when we were trying to come up with some backup spots, Chris maybe saying, was it like maybe 2 or 3 parking stalls?
Exactly, yeah.
Like around
That's
3 parking stalls,
exactly right, yes.
lane? Well, it's pretty technical terms right there, but.
so close to 60 feet long? I mean, 57 would be 3 parking spaces.
Yes, that's
good.
correct, yes.
The width of 3 parking spots or the length?
I was talking length.
Yeah, the length of the trailer, but you were talking using 3 spots wide,
Yeah,
so you're in the 30-foot range.
yeah, sorry, I was 16, not 15, yes, like 15 big. So,
What other impact is there in the immediate area for smoke? If we have it in front or in the parking lot, I mean, we've already got the smoke from Wild Tomato in front, but
Is there smoke?
From shop also, there would be, yes.
it's wood burning, he said, for
Right.
heat, so.
Well, I didn't know if there was something that, you know, filtered it inside before it went out or whatever, okay. And what are the hours of operation of this?
So it would be all day Saturday, so starting at 9 AM, 9
Okay.
AM to 6 PM.
Okay,
And then Sunday, it would run 9 AM to 3 PM.
okay. I don't know if I have an issue with the smoke, it's right there on their property.
No, and that's why I was just asking if there's, adjacent, but you've already got the smoke from Wild Tomato cooking, so it's probably not gonna be noticeable if it was in front. Or I was just wondering if it was in parking lot, is there a different impact on anybody? Probably not.
Well, and I think if you put it in the parking lot, fewer people see it and you kind of wanna advertise it and draw attention to it. It'll be hard to miss, obviously, if it's, so I do think that it makes more sense to have it in your front yard.
We agree.
and then when we threw out parking lot, that was kind of if there was some sort of issue, kind of like with the land or whatnot. So maybe we prefer that.
So would you, would you just go over the village's sidewalk and get it in there on your own property and you don't even have to go onto the village's corner?
We certainly, it's easier to use the village's corner, certainly.
Okay.
But if we had to get creative and just keep it on our property, we could certainly do that.
Okay.
So, yes.
That's all right then. So if we were to make a motion to approve according to the red X in our packet, and the same condition of, you know, if they damage anything or there's ruts or whatever, they would have to repair that. And that this could be, as long as everything stayed the same, the size, the placement, that they would not have to come back annually for it. But if the size did, if it got bigger or something else changed, they'd come back and talk to us. What else do you have?
Concern I would have with the ongoing, I agree with the idea of not making them come back all the time, but if the event ends up adding some other stations or something that were in that same area, there could be impact there.
On the property.
Yeah,
Is there some way they could make us aware of what they want to do each year without having to come for approval? So,
I said the approval could be
yeah,
just
there's
for
no
this.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it seems crazy to take up our time and their
Right,
time for
Right.
repetitive.
Skip, you mean, so approve it for the sauna only, but if they have other temporary uses or structures out there, then you'd wanna know that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so is this event, if this is the first year of the event and it's something that's looking to be ongoing, there could end up being other things that get pulled in and that could impact.
Right.
That's
Now,
what I would be concerned with.
we would allow them a tent permit, a tent out there without coming back to the plan commission. The code would allow a tent permit during an event. So just be aware of that, okay, that if you go by and all, once there's a tent there, that is something we would allow.
I would, and if I may, I would absolutely be comfortable coming back. If we had any changes whatsoever, we want everyone to know that, so.
I do have one question. What happens if there's a lot of snow? How do you get it there?
We had a lot of snow last time, unfortunately using village property to get that sauna was a major help for us. So if it was a case where we had a lot of snow, we had to put down plywood or come up with a creative way to get over the curb and onto the lawn, we could certainly do that as well.
Figure she's planted.
I know.
Yeah. Anything else, Steve?
Is there a time limit on how long the sauna will be sitting there then?
Good question. So we would bring it in the previous evening, which is Friday, and then we would have it out Sunday night as well.
Good.
Yes,
Friday to Sunday,
yes.
we'll put that in the,
So it will not be in use on Friday.
and no signage, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what I have is no signage, it can only be there from Friday to Sunday. Has been the approximate location of the red X. If there is any ruts or damage to village property, they're responsible for repairing it. They don't have to come back every year unless the location changes or additional temporary uses or structures are added out there
Or the size.
or the size. But we don't know the size.
So if it gets smaller, is that okay? It's just if it gets larger than the current one.
Gets smaller,
That's
that's
fine.
fine.
I understand.
Yeah. That would be a little crazy now, wouldn't it?
You never know.
Yeah, sometimes we are.
I'll know what
Limited.
about it.
Okay,
So what is the parking lot space width? Is that 12 feet or 10?
And
Okay, so that's what it's 30 feet.
okay. Somebody want to make that motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Boxy,
Second.
second by Hart. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you all. Got the full schedule on the website.
And Julie, thank you for everything and
Thank you.
good luck to you going forward. Yes.
thank
We
you, James.
appreciate everything you did. Cheers.
Thanks.
to meet you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank
And I will follow up with Ironwood Yoga, who was told they could not have it on their property
I was-
without going to the plan commission.
Yeah. When James said that, I thought, oh, well, that's a problem.
They were told, she asked and I told her no. I said, if you want it, you'd have to go to the plan commission, and then we never heard from her.
Okay, 5B, new zoning map discussion number 2. Now. Is this what's in the packet or this is the other things you sent us separately?
It's every, I
For
don't
both.
think it's anything in the packet.
So then it was the,
It's what I sent you. Yeah.
okay,
So.
I just need to know where to go on my computer to look.
Yeah, it's what I sent you. So when I say discussion number 2, you know, a lot of times people say, we had no idea this was going on, you know, you never told us. So I want to make it very clear when we're going through, we had one discussion already, we're on our second one, so public knows. Second meeting, we've talked about it, so if we have a third one, we'll try and put discussion number 3 on there. Or hopefully, your next administrator, so people know this wasn't done under a vacuum. You know, it was done in public at a meeting. And so far, we've had 2 discussions on it, so. All right, let's start with the items that are in the Word document, if you're okay with that, okay?
Okay. We'll go back to that.
That's this document.
Okay.
So these are leftover from the last meeting. The first one, it says that triangle at 57 in Orchard. So the plan, the future land use map showed, okay, currently it's all business, that whole triangle. And the future land use map showed commercial along the highway and the back of it was yellow, meaning residential. So the question is, what residential zone does that become?
Do we know the size of that triangle approximately? You know, because we can't zone it something if it doesn't meet the criteria,
Well,
you know, because large lot is 5 acres, countryside is 10.
right, I am looking, I don't know the size of that triangle, but I am guessing it is, okay, so that if this is a 40. That's a 10. I guess it's a little over 5 acres.
Okay.
Now, if we zone somebody's property, and we make it non-conforming, it's legally non-conforming. So, so that, wouldn't render it useless or undevelopable. But the question is, let's say you make it countryside, chances are maybe they'd only get one, maybe two lots out of there, depending on the size of this. R4, for example, and I don't think you put that there, obviously you get a lot more lots there.
I think large lot residence, which is a 5 acre minimum. Right, would
Isn't that what?
make the most
Jason
sense.
You're adjacent to countryside
Yeah, that's what I was.
to the east, and then to the south, we have to talk about. So maybe we talk about what's to the south and come back.
Well, let's go on then.
All right, let's move to the next one. So the next one, when we talked about it last month. The comment was made, well, I think they went through a rezoning. Why don't you check out, see what that was all about and bring it back? So I looked in those files, I found no record of any rezoning requests, discussion, or anything on those two properties. So, land use map, for whatever reason. Pull land use map. The land use map showed the front of that being business. And then the remainder of it all being residential. I would think you would want that business to be one long strip of business. Because when you're running sewer and water along a highway, if it's for business purposes, you want to keep going. I mean, it'd be a lot of money if you're not to run it past that property if it's not gonna be used for business. Right now, it is like a little farmstead or a little home or old home out there.
So
Right
we're-
now, it is countryside.
So we're just above where Northwoods comes into 57.
We are right here on the map.
You've got the advantage of a big map in front of you. We've got just the park.
I'm sorry.
So.
So it's this piece right here. And across from, well, it's across from the highway shop. On 57. And it goes from 57 back to Orchard. It's actually two parcels. Each one is about, I'm gonna say 10 acres, and so there's about 20 acres there.
How about? I like the idea of large lot. Because even though. The front half. Is the future land used is commercial. But it cuts that one parcel in half.
By putting the business along there.
Right.
Right. Mhm.
Just like the one north of it or whatever, so. I would like to see large lot too, and I don't know how far off. That is off the highway to get to the back side of that property, but as we know. Sewer and water. Not in the too distant future, is gonna be coming down
Needs to go
57.
down 57.
And so if you see some development, or maybe not even necessarily development on the highway. Once that goes in, you could access the back side of those parcels.
Run the sewer back there. Right. So the question, you made the comment, so if we, right now, it's not zoned business on the front, which is odd, because everything else is. So if the front were zoned business, that's not quite 300 feet, just to give you an example of how deep the depth of that red business zone is. So you'd have about the first 300 feet approximately would be business, and then the remainder would be large lots. Which would match the properties immediately to the south of that. Because we talked about that, those should be large lot. Everybody okay with that?
Say that again. In
So-
other words, keeping it business to the front 300 feet, so it's gonna be. Not large business in depth unless it's frontage, that would be. A larger operation.
Yeah, so all the business, let's say you wanna put a Walmart there. You know,
Sure, go right to that.
Yeah, the worst possible thing, like when Dollar General wanted to come to Sister Bay.
it would have to stay within that 300 feet, and by having it limited to 300 feet, you really do limit the type of business you're gonna have out there.
That's what I'm just talking out loud through what that looks like.
Yeah, it could not extend in, let's say you made it large lot, it cannot extend into the large lot unless they rezoned that large lot piece to make the business area larger. Cause we wouldn't allow a Walmart as a land use, in a large lot residential district. So,
And I mean, you're keen what I said last time about leaving it countryside where it's large lot. Allows later if something changes or if there's more development to go. To smaller lots
Smaller.
easier, but you can't go smaller to bigger.
I mean, you could, but it's
Well, now there's
difficult.
already stuff starting to happen.
I mean, somebody could petition, right? They could petition, but it would be difficult, cause now you've got buildings in the way and.
Right. That was my point, so. Yeah, I think keeping it countryside behind the. B1.
Oh, I was
So-
talking about large lot, R3. Not countryside.
Oh, okay.
She's saying if
Same,
sewer,
similar, yeah,
Yeah.
It's still a 5 acre
yeah.
minimum parcel.
so you okay with business along the highway there? Let's start with that. Everybody okay with business along the
Yes.
highway? Patrice, are you okay with business along the highway? Okay, and then the remainder would be large lot, which is what the property immediately south would be zoned.
Mhm.
Okay. So then let's go back up to the one to the north then, okay? So on this map, again, this is proposed zoning, we'd have the business on the front. Would it be large lot in the back then? So everything west of Orchard is large lot, everything east is countryside. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Cause you could always, like Denise said, you could take that sewer off the highway and send it back.
Right.
To go down Orchard, that'd be a big fee. So you wouldn't wanna have. The other side be large lot, so, okay,
So does that leave sewer
Seems okay.
easements on property lines or how would that?
that would all have to be worked out when they split it. When they split it, normally they'd run down property line. Okay, Patrice, are you okay with the back being large lot?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Let's move on to the third straggler from last month. It's not really a straggler, but it was a question I had. So. Up on Fieldcrest. let me Get my bearings, where am I, where's Fieldcrest?
They only read that.
Yeah, and you know, what's interesting is. So those are all homes out there and we're trying to pick up the CBRF, but oh no, I'm sorry, ignore what I just said. So it's a CBRS, it's, you know, a home, a community-based residential facility. Oftentimes you have elderly people living in a home-like setting or maybe disabled people. And that, because that is considered a residential use and we have it as business. So my question is, do we really want to do that? Because if you have that business, you could technically get anything allowed in that business district applying to now be in a residential area. Whereas on the flip side, if a CBRF is allowed in a residential area, aren't you better off keeping it residential?
Absolutely.
it's all.
No debate.
residences. It's all residences up and down there.
Right,
Yeah,
Is that all? R ones right now, or is that?
R1. So just so you know, this is one that when we amend the zoning map, we're gonna have to amend the future land use.
Okay.
Cause on the future land use map, we put that as commercial. So we wanna make sure it's changed on there, right? The map has to be consistent with the plan. We have to do that anyway because of that mistake we discussed last month along Sunset where that single family home was zoned business. So it's not a big deal, but, okay, so I'm gonna put that one goes to R1.
So.
And they're currently less than 8 persons.
I don't know, yeah.
Well, I was looking up the definition, cause, cause I went to the R1 district, it doesn't call it a CBRF in R1.
No,
It's a
because they-
licensed community and other living arrangements which have a capacity for 8 or fewer persons. And our definition of a CBRF is a place where 5 or more unrelated people live together. I think we need to say
No more
8
than eight.
maximum.
Yeah.
I think it needs to follow how we're talking about it on page 11 of our code in the R1, and the definition mirrors that.
So it's a funny thing, we're having this conversation about the definition. Because as I'm cleaning up my desk, I found a note from Denise that I made a note. You and I talked one time and made some chicken scratch that the code needed to be amended to fix the definition. You and I have talked about this maybe a year or more ago.
I don't remember that.
And I never
You
did
just
get,
found the note?
yes.
I've seen your desk.
Cleaned it up and made it to the top.
That's right.
Wait, I'm scared to see what else is on there.
Maybe there's money.
So one of the things when we get to these when we get to these miscellaneous definitions, we can talk about adding that. What I think we should do is look at the state definition and just make the whole thing consistent with the state.
Oh,
definition.
no, I know what it was, cause I have duplicate written here.
Okay,
If you turn from page 195, cause it's, the first one is after car or truck wash. And the definition of channel,
okay,
which means it's out of alphabetical order, and then it's on the next page exactly where it should be. So that it was a duplicate somehow.
Well, no, it's because one's community-based and one is just community residential.
Based. Residential. Mine say exactly the same.
This is community living arrangement.
Go down 2 more.
Oh, yeah, you're not far enough.
let me clean all of that up,
Okay.
okay? We wanna be consistent with the statutes, okay, on all of that, so I'll clean all of that up. I'll put it in your proposal, whatever we talk about tonight. I'll give you the statute reference, so you have that when you look at that next month. But we are gonna make that go residential, yeah.
Yeah, one's 3 or more, one's 5 or more.
So let's talk about this. If all of that, we'll clean up the definitions. If all of those uses are allowed in R1, we keep it R1, right? What if what if one of them's only allowed in a business district? Keep it a business district or just make it a non-conforming use? They can continue on. But if you make it a non-conforming use, what you're doing is you're protecting your neighborhood from potentially getting a business use in there.
Well, that was kind of why I was asking currently, is that, what's that called? The heart or something? Or
Something, yeah, I looked it up the other day, it's something like that.
Yeah,
Not hard.
that's why I was asking how many.
Inside.
Our side,
Yeah, I was gonna see if Patrice knows, cause.
Um,
my mom was there.
how many units are there currently? I never see more than about 5 or 6 cars in a lot, but that's probably staff.
Yeah, because the residents, a lot of them in a older CBRF don't drive. Let me do some work on it for you, okay? For now, I'm gonna put it as R1. So Bailey can update the map, cause she said she would come in Tuesday morning to take care of whatever we decide to make. Okay, so I'll clean this, okay. So then let's move on and talk about other things on the map, okay? So what she did for us was, she made all the changes we talked about last month. One of the things we talked about last month was this guy, right here. Across from Pebble Beach, corner of, by,
The cemetery?
yeah. And, he,
Is it the cemetery?
that is Pebble Beach right there.
Oh, okay.
Is the cemetery actually outside of village limits or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually to Liberty Grove.
That's right.
So that man
That's
is,
what you go, Brad, just to verify.
that man is his own business and he has a little house there. And because I recently issued a permit for him on, or gave him some information on something. And so I reached out and I said, because it's odd that that's business, right? And so I reached out and asked him if he'd perhaps want to be a residential district. And he said, well, you know, the thing is, someday in the distant future, we would like to maybe have some ADUs or something for other family members out there, so we'd like to be business. And I said, well, just so you know, that wouldn't be allowed in business, it'd be allowed in the R2, so it's to your benefit to go R2. And he said, well, they're just not ready to make the change right now. So that's fine, he'll just have to go through rezoning if he wants. That's one I would think the village would welcome.
Yes.
To clean it up, but for now, it'd stay business, we talked about, so that's one we had talked.
So aside from that, looking down the road, if he should, decide to sell it. And a business wants to go in there, is that an appropriate location for business?
I think it would depend on the business.
Well, I'm just trying to ask the question because what's behind it is condominiums. You're not in an easily accessible area.
Right. I would, for one, you always hope some business is gonna be like that, that's not a wise investment. But the reality is, we see stuff happen all the time, and all at once you could have a Walmart.
And that's why I'm asking the question, is, are we better to pursue it as a residential?
Put it on the map that way, and then he can make his argument here.
That's a good point.
And then it all depends on what happens with the golf course in the future,
Well, the front part of that is already,
business, right?
yeah, on some maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, in here it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. But that has frontage right on the highway,
Yes.
whereas this other property is totally on the Little
Right.
Sister Road, or I guess that's Bay Shore before it turns to Little Sister.
He's been
Yeah.
doing something to that place.
Or
He's been doing something to that
he's been doing a
place.
lot of work,
Yeah,
mostly in the foundation basement. Stabilize it.
Yeah, and they had a lot of runoff and damage, so they're putting fill
yeah,
up to the
they
water
have
flow.
lots of water. and
Well, that's
stuff.
hilarious, and that flow that drains from Open Heart under the highway and all the way down to.
Right. On future land use map, the house is picked out as residential, which it will say residential. We have the remainder of it as, I believe it says open land. There's a
No,
natural
no,
area.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
backside of, the old favorite golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we could, I could tell him that the plan commission wants it residential, and if he feels strongly about it being business, he should show up at the meeting and make the argument.
I think it should match what, yeah, R2. Right?
I mean, that's what everybody going past there is residential.
Okay. The other. Let me see, where is Sunset? Okay. All right, so she made those residential changes we talked about. so this should reflect what the new zoning map would look like. The question is, has anybody looked at it to see if there's any errors or anything we missed, something that maybe isn't correct on it?
I didn't do that deep dive.
Okay.
I don't have enough.
Natalie and I did, and we thought it looked pretty good. I mean, we went through kind of, not each parcel, but pretty close, you know, especially in the commercial areas. And it all made sense to me, her too. We kept track of the list of all the parcels that change. I did ask her, you know, to put, we talked about a woodland overlay. So I asked her to put that on the map. So the first one. So the one that says draft 1216 zoning map with draft amendments, woodland overlay and all other districts. That is what your zoning map would look like. Now. I do wanna talk about the PUD, but I guess I can wait on that a little bit. Are there any concerns with how this map looks?
Quick question, what does a woodland overlay cover? Cause I'm looking at my neighborhood and I live in woods. And I don't see that listed as a woodland overlay.
So what they did, is in the future land use map, you know, we had a natural resources map which showed almost the whole village's woods.
Mhm.
And then they looked at which woodlands tend to be larger and connected and have more of an environmental value. And those are ones that end up in that woodland overlay.
Okay,
So-
so that's the green. The,
Right.
hash mark, well, the one you sent us too.
Right,
Okay.
so on your future land use map.
Yeah.
When we adopted, at that time, we had picked out more significant woodlands that we really felt people should not be able to just go in and cut down.
Okay,
And those ended up on the future land use map.
oh,
So to try and make the zoning map consistent, well, you could create a woodland zone. And people really wouldn't be able to do much, but we really want them, you know, if it's R1 and it has a woodland
Mhm.
overlay on it. We wanted to still be able to use that property as R1, we don't wanna do a taking, right? That government shouldn't be doing takings and it's challenged. So it says you can still use the land for its underlying use, but we're putting this overlay over to make sure you just don't go cut all the trees down. And then last month, of course, we talked about what those woodland rules would say, and it would basically limit the amount of trees you cut down for your road and around your building. I'm sorry, driveway and around your building. So like this one, the biggest one is at the very southwest corner of the village. That's a pretty large woodland that we'd wanna keep for habitat, air purification, oxygen creation.
That's just where all the deer hang out during hunting season.
I know, so
yeah,
What about the area that Steve Musitsky was talking about last meeting?
All the orchard area.
Yeah,
yeah, so,
cause I think he kept saying forest and it's not a forest, it's an old orchard. It goes,
But I think Steve took it to an extreme and.
I think Steve thought he wasn't gonna be able to cut
yes,
anything down.
yes, that's what he was concerned with. And I know he's next to Tom Sadler and Tom's is all orchard back there. There's a few big trees, but a lot of pines and stuff. It's not what I'd call a forest.
I mean, orchards don't last forever anyway, they're not like a maple in your
No,
front yard, I mean.
But you do see trees starting to come up in that area, and it's part of that interconnected environmental network. So I think that's why they get picked up on that woodland layer. But I don't know that for sure, cause I didn't create it.
Does the woodland overlay that's been used here match our definition for woodland? Based on tree size and densities and.
So
Do we have a definition?
well, right now, we don't have a woodland overlay.
Correct.
And we don't have anything.
I'm just asking if this overlay, when it was picked out. Coordinates. woodland.
No, I don't think we did look at that. I don't think we looked at, how woodland is used elsewhere in the code. What section, read it to me, Skip, or tell me, are
The
you?
definition,
I'm literally just looking at the definition, yeah.
an area of wooded land at least 1 acre in size and containing deciduous or coniferous, is that how you pronounce that word?
Coniferous.
Okay. Trees that at least 50% of which are either 20 feet or more in height or have a trunk diameter 6 inches above the ground of at least 4 inches.
So no, because when they did, when they create, when Bailey helped us with the woodland layer, they were looking at, you know, they have
Just
act-
survey,
they're looking at the maps that are available to them, like the natural resource maps and aerial surveys and stuff. So, and then I think, we said in our woodland layer. That I have, it's cardinal. No, it's a kind of a dull red.
Grace, we can hear you.
It was, we didn't define it. We said, this district serves to protect the village's tree canopy from destruction, aiding climate regulation, air and water purification, soil conservation, provide essential habitat and food sources for wildlife, and enhance the natural beauty of the village. Determination, the location of the woodlands in the woodland overlay district are those woodlands identified in the future land use map. So we're not tying it to that definition.
that's what
Good
makes sure we're
catch.
not getting ourselves in trouble, but because we're tying it to the land use map, then
Right.
it's just geographic.
I think that's a good catch, and that's a good point to make.
Really good.
So, the one thing I, on this map is, so the statutes say, when you have a planned unit development, it has to be added to your zoning map. And we don't traditionally, we don't do that. Now with the Dudley development, we are. Because he's the first PUD that I've had since I've been here, so he'll be on the map. But we really should, on this zoning map, add a little box for PUD and put those PUDs on there. Problem is, I don't know where they all are. Because, you know, we don't have a PUD file. Now, I know that,
I think they got put at Sister Bay.
isn't
Long
Sherwood
time
a PUD?
ago was a PUD.
Yeah,
Check. I thought they said at the last meeting, or somebody said at the last meeting that Devil's was gonna be the only one. No, we
okay.
have a couple. Okay,
Chris, the Door Hotel and that development is a PUD.
yes, it is, yes.
So
It
we're
just
only
never was
concerned
developed.
with retrospective, we're not trying to forecast them, right?
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay,
So that's a matter of, but I just wanna make sure you agree or you know, we're gonna put that on the map because you're supposed to have that on.
So were these developed as PUDs at the time they were done
Right.
in our definition of, okay,
Yes, and they went through the whole process
Okay.
and, I think
well, then there should be records, because doesn't the board have to?
there are, but the thing is.
I'm
Which ones are they?
Struggling for the name of what it was that they just,
An ordinance.
ordinance, that's what.
The problem is, like, I know from working on the Door Hotel file, that was approved as a PUD. I don't know which other ones were approved as a PUD. I think Zeke's Ice Cream, or not Zeke's, and that little ice cream, was that done as a PUD?
I was off the board at that time.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the best I can, but I want you to know, I might miss some PUDs and you might have to add those.
Because you might have to go through the whole entire, every property file that's commercial.
And I'm not doing that.
No, you won't, no.
So, we're gonna do the best we can. If we miss one, you know, we'll just have to add it.
Well, that'll be a good job for the new administrator and he can acquaint himself with the businesses and he can look for that.
You can run
Right.
their whole file.
Look up every one, yep.
Why
would
a hotel be planned unit development?
Because what you have there is the front there, they were gonna do little shops and stuff. all along the highway there, where you see that lawn.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be little shops or stuff there.
Mhm.
Chop, I don't know if Chop was included in the PUD, but that's how that was approved.
I thought it had to be residential too. And it's none
No,
of that is.
no, it can, whatever zoning district.
Okay,
It's an overlay, so
okay.
it's whatever's under that.
Yeah, so we have commercial PUDs and we have,
Okay.
Dudley's residential. So, okay, so those PUDs are gonna go on there too, okay?
So do you think the condos at the top of the hill were a PUD? Cause I cannot remember.
I think the
They
condos
were.
at the top were a PUD. Now with a commercial PUD, you're supposed to have a mix of uses, you know, like maybe you'd have a coffee shop in there and something else. Which is why with the hotel,
You get the jewelry store.
Yeah.
yeah, right, yeah. Cause you're having them mixed uses and you're saying they shouldn't have to have their own parking lot for the jewelry store. You know, everybody can use the same parking, everybody can use the same property. Because it's planned out, right? So I'll add those. Other than that, I think the map is good. Because we really didn't change much. Your future land use map didn't change a heck of a lot. So that meant a lot of most of your zoning map didn't change. What I think you should do is just have a public informational session, send it to everybody on there and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. And do it that way before you go into an actual public hearing. Or you could jump into a public hearing.
Oh, for only the few things that we're changing,
No information, just go to P.
yes. My opinion, unless anybody disagrees here. I mean, it's so few parcels.
I mean, most of it seems like a ship already sailed, so it's.
Mhm.
I mean, really, this was the time when we did the future land use map to tell us, and everybody, we did mail every single parcel. In the village at the time we did the land. use. Okay, well, we can schedule that for January. I won't be here, but. We don't have to answer those questions.
That's
They're
okay.
going, ah, ah, ah. Should be in Maui.
That's fine.
Teresa, are you okay with everything we talked about?
Yes, I'm fine. It's all good.
Anybody not wanna accept this the way it is or move forward?
Do you want a motion?
I think we should, just so it's very clear. I know Nate's not here, we may have changes later, but at least the record's clear that we did discuss it, we did agree to move this forward to public hearing. And hopefully we don't have objections later.
Yeah, so essentially the motion.
Well,
is
because
to-
if Nate had some objections, then he should have emailed us with what his talking points were.
But
So
I
he
did not
should-
receive
He
anything.
should be fine with it then.
Yeah, so I mean, the motion is to take what we just discussed to public hearing.
Right,
Is that a motion by Heidler?
I guess it is.
Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Champeau, all in favor?
I,
Opposed, motion carried.
oh. I just have one thing to add. Just a note, you guys, the wellhead protection layer is not on there because we didn't have the GPS coordinates on it, but that'll go on the final map. So, it's on your zoning map. I want to tell you, in the future, a little to-do list for you guys is you should really rewrite your entire wellhead protection overlay district. It's kind of a joke, and I say that kindly, but like it's got wrong names, it doesn't talk about PFAs. But the other thing is, so I'm used to working with wellhead protection on a county scale. And what you do is, so a well has a capture zone, right? It's pulling water from
The cone
here,
of-
cone of
the
depression, yeah.
Cone of depression.
And all that water, so it's pulling it, and that's what's going up into your water tower. We say it's 500 feet around the base of the tower.
it doesn't say this.
No. I guarantee you are pulling water from further than 500 feet from the base of your tower. And our wellhead protection zone does not match what the utilities has as what impacts that water quality. They should match,
So that's where it should be based.
you know, and we're pretty good, you know, like you couldn't have, I'm just gonna throw it out there, a petroleum processing plant within 500 feet of that tower. Well, you don't want it, realistically, you don't want it anywhere in that capture zone. So I don't like what you have. And I haven't had time to look at it, but I do think it should be, if you really wanna protect your water quality, you should be updating that section.
So then why don't you write that, so we have it when the minutes are printed? That next meeting or whatever, that it's notated there, that we start having that conversation
Right.
about it. And pulling, and then we would have to, maybe Megan from utilities would wanna come and talk about, you know, the utilities. And how it should impact how theirs is written, how ours is. written.
Right, they should be consistent so you're protecting your water quality, and land use has a big impact on water quality.
With the geology of this area, does the DNR have any input on that? Since I know they've been so involved with some of the large farm operations because of.
Right, so we have the fractured bedrock, so we get high nitrates and
That's
stuff
why
easily
The
go
cone
down.
really is useless because at a certain level, there's so much
Right,
going
and
horizontal.
comes down the cracks and it goes along those little aquifers that are creeping, sleeping underneath the rock, right?
Well, some of those are a quarter mile long.
Right, right, and that's why not to go out on a tangent, but that's why a lot of places also do that extraterritorial zoning, because if you looked at your capture zone, let's say it goes a half mile out of town, you'd wanna have some impact on what's happening in that town, because if somebody put up a pig farm or a CAFO, you know, feeding operation out there, that could affect your water quality. So that's why it's really good to have those relationships with the town to say, you know, let's have extraterritorial zoning. Even if it's only for land uses like a CAFO or something that could affect your water.
In the CUPAC plan. Does it talk about? You know, the area that we're pulling from at all? I mean, I have a copy at home, I was on that committee.
I don't remember seeing that, Denise, but you know what, I'll be honest with you, I have not looked at that for a long
I haven't
time.
looked at it for a long time either.
But I do think it, like you said, I think it makes sense to have a special meeting with Megan to just say, hey. We're concerned about the capture zone and what can we do from a land use perspective to make sure our water quality is protected? You know, that's also a good time for Megan to. Give you a demo on the new GIS system she put together, which from a planning perspective, she has it all mapped now where you can say, this is where the sewer lines are running, this is, you know. That helps you when you're thinking about where to allow a subdivision, you know, where's the closest sewer line and stuff like that, so. But aside from that too, like I said, you talk about here, like well, number 2 is located at Smith Drive and Highway 57.
Well, you have to be an old timer to know where that is.
That tells you how old this section of the code is. It's,
Right over by a gas station, isn't it?
I don't know, it's not
No,
on
it's
anything
on the
I
top of the hill.
Oh.
No,
What's
it's-
right behind you?
That's well number 1.
Oh, okay,
Smith is over
Smith
by,
is now Canterbury.
okay.
Oh, that one.
The
yeah,
Standpipe.
the standpipe, the
Yes.
first one that went in.
I know a little bit about groundwater, I used to, groundwater quality was one of the divisions within my department that I managed. Again, it was all rural groundwater that we worked with, but I know enough to know this is not good. Okay, so that'll be a project that I will leave Ben a note and tell him to work on. All right,
And so you're writing that down for it to be discussed again for the minutes?
yes.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. So are we on page 13 now?
Right,
Miscellaneous text amendments?
right.
Okay.
Do you want me to just take over and keep the lead on this, Denise?
Sure, or we can just go page by page. Like I said, I think I only have one other thing to talk about. So did anybody make notes that they had questions about?
I did on page 13.
Okay,
Is that where we're, just that. We've got 1 through 4, but the original, I've gotta go take a look, had a lot more subsections. And I just want. In the, well, it's page 132 of our zoning
Okay.
code book. Under general requirements. We still had 5, 6, 7, 8. Are those going by the wayside? Are you proposing, or is it
No.
just renumbering and?
Just renumbered, so when I'm showing you, I don't put the whole section in there because it.
Okay, I just,
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, I'm showing you what's gonna change.
okay.
So if I was gonna cut out 5, 6, 7, 8 as an example, Skip, it'd be
you'd
red
line
with a
through it.
strike through.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
making sure.
I know, but that's a good point and a good point for the public to know, you know, if there's a crossout, we're getting rid of it. If it's not on here, it just means I'm trying to save paper. So, you know,
And our time reading it,
right,
if it's not changing.
yeah, so, yeah, so it would be renumbered and the other items would stay in there.
What I did, now I gotta figure out where it was, my note on here was related. Where you talk about any outdoor lighting fixture installed on a parking lot. Does that include structure mounted lighting for parking lots? If there's parking, but if it's a structure.
You mean the lighting on the building?
So I'm thinking in terms of the Halbrook proposal where there wasn't, I think there was 1 or 2 lights out in the lot, but the buildings themselves had some dark sky featured lights.
So from a land use perspective, what we do in Sister Bay. Since I've been here, is those lights would be reviewed. When we're reviewing the lights on the building. And that's why when they go for a development agreement and we're doing our site plan review. They have to give us that map, you'll often see the map. I never remember the name of it, which shows how far out the light is casting. They give us those, not a spectrum, but you know, it shows how far the light
Shows
is
the
down.
diffusion.
Right, and we,
The candles, the light candles?
yeah, and you know, it shows, they give us, it's all the little boxes, it shows how far it's been. So when it's on a building, shining on a parking lot, we're reviewing that when we look at the building. When it's a freestanding light inside a parking lot, that's how I've always interpreted, and from what I can see, we've always said, that's the outdoor light fixture in a parking lot.
Okay, good. This just says any outdoor lighting fixture installed on a parking lot. And that,
But it's on a building. So that's
Okay.
how we have looked at that.
okay,
And we could do it differently. I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm just saying that's how we've done it.
I'm just always looking for a lot of clarity. When sometimes that means too many words in something, so it's.
I don't disagree. Sometimes you see that on them. Yeah, I would say it says on a parking lot, not on a building, and that would be my answer if somebody asked. me
Okay.
that. And I do think those questions are good because I think it helps everybody understand what we're talking about when we're talking about.
And I get the 2,000 to 3,000 K, 3,000 to start the quarter, pretty bright white, but it's. Not black and white.
And anybody else have anything on 13?
No,
Okay. 14? $15? 16? 17? 18? 19?
Yeah. Let's see what I've got here. Oh, this was mostly just to make sure that going forward, that we don't run into other crossover with woodland overlays. It's down about 3/4 of the way through the paragraph where we just have or woodlands as shown on the most recent aerial photos of the village. It wasn't that it was an issue here, it was just recognizing that we're probably gonna run somewhere else in our codes of the woodland overlay impacting things.
I can look and see if there is something we can put in there to make it very clear woodlands and woodland overlay are not the same.
Because this, by definition, would go back to how we define woodlands.
Right.
And I know, yeah, I mean. Here we're talking about DNR wetlands maps, but then we're just talking about an aerial photo of the village as the woodlands area.
I have to find that in, oh, yeah, so, okay, so however, the process shall not be required in the CS, this is where you're talking, right? Skip?
Yeah.
CSM one district unless the development site contains wetlands as shown on either the July 1, 1992 final wetland inventory map. You know, and that should, every time you have that, it should say or successor map, to be honest with you, because they often
they update.
update on. I'm gonna throw that in there, I'll see if I can find it elsewhere in the folder. I have done that in some areas on some stuff I found. But, okay, or wet areas as shown on the village's latest topographic maps, or woodlands as shown on the most recent aerial photos.
And see, that seems like a very ambiguous.
I can fix that. And I think that's a good catch, good thing to do. Avoids the confusion and people arguing about what the code means,
Well, and that's why you know, when we get ourselves into those situations over the years, and no matter how hard you try, we're still gonna, you know, trip up sometimes. Okay. What was the intent? Yep, these are the words on the paper, but if you weren't here to remember and tell everybody what the intent of those words were when you amended the code, then it just kind of becomes this free-for-all.
right?
But aren't we in the proposal later for the woodlands? Isn't site plan and architecture review gonna be part of that process when they're encroaching on the woodlands overlay area?
No, it just says it has come for the plan commission for review, so there's a lot of areas in the code that say. They're not site plan or architectural review, but you still have to go in front of the plan
Okay.
commission.
Alright.
Like if you wanna have a greater cutting plan, like let's say you're along the bluff, and you wanna cut more trees than the bluff overlay district would allow. It says you have to bring that cutting plan to the plan commission. So, and I'll say on this one too, you know, I'm not concerned about this woodlands section causing a problem with the woodland overlay, cause it says it's the woodlands as shown on the most recent air photo. So, but I'll take a look at that and clean that up. I think those are good points.
Anything else on 19?
I don't know. No, I'm sorry. I was already on page
No,
20
see,
trying to.
This, and I'm
I'm
thinking of
sorry.
Daisy, trying to find. Okay. Page 20.
Since we're on page 20, there's something I'd like to do in the code. I guess I'm never resigning. That there's stuff in this code that really bothers me that I want to do as a Scrivener error. So, you know, if you're changing content that has to be by ordinance, sometimes if it's just a typo, you fix it as what's called Scrivener's error. This code has always drove me crazy how you see how substandard was sub-standard? No, it's substandard, that's one word. Non-conforming, no, it's non-conforming is one word. I'd really like to go through, that has always drove me crazy. I'd really like to go through and clean that up.
You know
not-
what I'm wondering though? If that was, because when we did the code when Bob Cuffrin was here. And it was horrible. I mean, our columns
I
were
remember
like
that.
this. And you know, if there were a couple of other words, non-conforming might not have even.
It might have been hyphenated just to make the word on 3
Correct.
lines.
And I'm wondering, because of that code, and if when Janelle retyped it, if she just thought
It was all hyphenated.
it was all hyphenated.
Maybe.
Because I remember, I mean, they were so narrow, it was so awful.
When I started, the code was in columns like that.
Yeah,
It was very hard to read.
very hard to
And we
read.
had Janelle go through and fix everything, reformat, put it in a codification form, which, because the other thing we always did was, you know, there's. I was explaining to staff that when you're. We would always have stuff that would be. Parent or small a period and then parent one period, and I'm like, no, you always start as. One, and then the A, you know, and so she started changing all the codes and we got through. A lot of them, but there's a lot that are still in that old some are still in columns, some are still in that old format that we never got to.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't see those sections of those chapters of the code, but there's the whole code book is really that. I mean, you have chapters 1, 2, you know, codes you guys never even deal with. And we rarely deal with, but they're old like that, but she tried to change all of them. There's a few I think that still are not updated, but we'll get to me, or staff will get to me eventually. So just like I said, while we're on the subject, because I have a note later in the packet too. I'm just gonna go through and fix the sub-standard and the non-conforming. Just because it makes it really hard to read for me, you know, because I'm like, oh, there it is.
Okay, nothing else on 20? 21? Yes, Skip?
All right, so at the very top of 21, which is the end of the discussion on substandard lots, section 5,
Okay,
it reads. And may be utilized for development, provided all setback and green space requirements can be satisfied. Shouldn't we include that on the end of the next section also, 660920? Where we're talking existing non-conforming lots.
Well, let me tell you something, Skip. You know, where it says provided all setback and green space requirements are. That is taken from another section of the code, and I was trying to be consistent. I don't like that. It should be dimensional requirements. If you can't meet dimensional requirements, you shouldn't be able to build one. You know, but anyways, just side note on that, okay? Just.
Well, I mean, because I went through and did the exercise of what size house you can put on each of the different lots. Based on that.
oh, you went down the rabbit hole, didn't you?
Absolutely. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
That's why
you're
you're here.
Yeah.
But some of those other things, especially like parking on a B1 could be an impact. That,
Parking in my 3 decades has always been the determining factor of everything.
but because the next section includes B1. I mean, that was just kind of where I went on making sure some of that other stuff was at least part of the discussion.
Okay, so Julie, how do you see that? Explain your rationale. That you were following the current wording elsewhere in the code, that setback and green space requirements can be satisfied. And how do you view that different than dimensional standards?
To me, a dimensional standard is much more. So, you know, this talks about setback in green space,
Because we do have other parts in there that talk about, you know, the width of the lot at the buildable line, that kind of thing. So those dimensional standards are important in that aspect.
yeah, she's got me thinking now.
Because we don't have a definition for dimensional standard.
No, but in your code, you talk about, let me just show you real quick.
I'm just trying to get,
See, when you look in all of your charts. They're all called dimensional standards. Your charts. That, you know, no chart says. I mean, they,
Okay.
they
So the title-
include
the
green
title of-
space.
The title of this is.
They include the green space, they include the setbacks, but all of it falls under dimensional standards. So it's like the hierarchy then,
Okay.
right?
yeah, it's because, you know, somebody could say, well, it says here, I only have to meet the setback and have enough green space, and I'm, you know, I'm the type of person that. Don't leave the wiggle room, make it very clear, you have to meet all the dimensional standards.
So then
Like-
you should go change the one above to dimensional standards.
But that it's probably 100 other places in the code where it says this, is what you're saying.
It says dimensional more often than it says. Setbacks and green space, but there, the section, I think right before it, or another one that references, uses those exact words. Setback and green space requirements.
Well, that was what happens. I saw it up there and then I pulled it down.
But now that I think about it, you know, a dimensional standard is your square footage also, right? Square footage of a home. That's a dimensional standard. So I suppose if it said dimensional standards, somebody could. That would
Well-
apply to a lot.
So that was the rabbit hole I went down, was the minimum size house that would, or maximum would fit on that substandard lot
And
because of the.
see, let's say it's only 300 square feet. Well, that doesn't meet our dimensional standards
Sure.
for a home.
Well, in each of the sections with a 65 by 153.8 foot lot, you can build any of our R1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Now, what was driving me nuts and I couldn't find last month when I was preparing for this discussion, somewhere I found something about required square footage for a septic field. I could not go back and find it anywhere. It's probably not in these codes. It's probably in one of our other codes somewhere. I spent hours looking for it again. But because we have B1 listed and we have some B1 area that's not serviced by sewer and water yet.
It used to be, I don't know about our code, but it used to be you had to have 1 acre for private on-site wastewater treatment system.
And that may be what I found somewhere.
Yeah, because what
Maybe that's in
happened,
the utilities code?
no, I'm just thinking back to my life before
Oh.
Sister Bay, like if you're in a rural area, for example, in the county, you would have to have an acre, because you have to have room for and that may have changed, all changed.
Field and
The
all
leach
that
field,
stuff, yeah.
the pump chamber and all that other stuff. And the house and the driveway, so that, but like I said, that may have all changed, but you're right, it used to be 1 acre if you weren't on sewer and water.
Were you looking at the code online, Skip?
Like if I had found it again, I would have it to
No,
tell you.
but I'm.
Yes, I was online looking at.
Okay, so you pulled it off the village's website and
Somewhere.
Control F didn't show up at anywhere?
Not in my
Hmm.
PDF, so
Okay.
anyway,
But don't worry about the 1 acre, because nowadays. You have holding tanks and you don't need an acre for a holding tank. So what happens?
but a business is probably not gonna be able to operate on a full tank, cause depending on what the business is, but.
Actually, you'd rather have let's go down the rabbit hole. In my opinion, you'd rather have it on a holding tank than a leach field, because let's say you have all the toilets flushing
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything, you're gonna blow out your leach field. For a holding tank, you're just gonna have to pay to keep getting it pumped. And a lot of businesses, that's why you don't have businesses, most businesses don't wanna be out in the country, because that gets really expensive to pump that tank all the time.
Yeah.
I've seen it. So for our purposes, we don't worry about it because if they can't, that's up to the county. If the county is gonna say, yes, we can give you a sanitary permit or not. And you have enough room or you don't have enough room, you have enough soil depth or you don't have, we leave all of that up to
Okay.
them. So we don't,
Well, like I said, I didn't think that was one that
yeah.
was gonna impact, but that was.
You know, if
part of the
we
problem
were-
in my head.
If we were doing our own sanitary inspections or issuing those, I think we'd have to worry about that. But and in most urban areas, or I'm sorry, incorporated areas, you're just gonna say this is the standard and you may have that anomaly to where you can't get anything out there. But they're gonna have to figure that out with the county. Maybe they get a variance from them for the location of the tank or something.
Okay.
But
So that gets handled at a
Yeah.
different level.
we don't have the staff expertise to deal with that stuff.
Okay.
And we don't want it. You don't encounter it enough to hire somebody to do that.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, so back to the dimensional standards, requirements or setbacks and green space.
Okay, again, let me look at it all comprehensively and make sure it's consistent, okay? You guys trust me on that? Just, I thought I did. There was a reason why I did it the way I did, but I have to, it's been a while since I wrote it, so I have to go back and look at it.
And if we're saying dimensional, it should be standards, not requirements, because standards is what we help determine it. Good news is that's the end of my notes.
Anything else on 21?
I have something.
Oh, okay.
So that's the start, so all of that, up to this point, we talked about all of that last month. Now we're starting the non-conformity thing. And as you read in the green, real simple. Your non-conforming standards, we talked briefly about this, don't gel with state statutes, so we just wanna make them. And we also wanna make them easier to understand. I put all the statutes in here, I put the acts in there, cause sometimes when stuff gets to the board level, they just. Well, that's a silly rule and, you know, maybe somebody thinks it should be changed. I wanted it very clear. No, there's statutes that govern this. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. So just had to throw that out there. So that's why we're doing it, because we're all, regardless of people would say this planning commission is always looking to make sure we are consistent with statutes, so we don't get in trouble.
Page 22. I have something really minor. And it's under existing non-conforming uses. Under number 2. Repairs and structural alterations. The total structural repairs or alterations in such a non-conforming building. Can we write non-conforming use building? Is that, because that's the heading that it's under. Because a non-conforming building could be different than a non-conforming use building.
But isn't this the part that gives us the,
So, but I was having a problem trying to make.
but I think this is where it allows us to cross over from use to structure and restrict it. If I understood it correctly. A lawful non-conforming use up in the very beginning section. May be continued, although use does not conform with the provisions of this chapter, however. The total structure repairs or alterations in such a non-conforming building, premises or structure shall not during its life exceed 50% of the assessed value. So this is the spot where we actually can go back and. Have teeth to deal with a non-conforming structure. Based on, is anybody understanding that correctly?
Okay, so let me give you an example, okay, so we have, you have a building and, it's in an R1 zone. And the front part is used as a tavern, the back part's a massage parlor, and the other part's a tavern. Did I say tavern?
You did.
Okay, it has 2 taverns, okay?
It is Wisconsin after all.
No, and the back part's a home, okay? The home is allowed in R1. that part is okay, the other ones are not. What it's saying is only that portion of the building in actual use may be so continued. So they can't, the tavern in the front can continue in that portion of the building, but it cannot be extended, enlarged, substituted, or moved. Unless required to do so. So a non-conforming, just because a non-conforming use, just because the tavern is in that building, doesn't mean it can take over that whole building. No, you're a non-conforming use, you're restricted to just that part of the building you're in now. That's what that means.
Can't kick out the residential aspect of it.
Right, you have to, because non-conforming use always says, you know what? You predated the code, you stay where you are, life is good, you don't change anything, just go about your merry way. But now if you wanna go expanding, state statutes say you have to stick to that portion that you were grandfathered. You can't just expand and expand and expand. And you know where a lot of that comes from is back in the day, and I'm gonna go back to the countryside here. Back in the day, you'd have, I'm gonna use a quarry as an example, you had 40 acres and somebody was mining the first 5. And they would just keep going and the whole 40 was a great big quarry, right? And people were up in arms and there's lawsuits everywhere. And now this is a bad example because there are different quarry rules, but but what I'm trying to say is you can't just go and just expand to the limits of the property or the building. When you're non-conforming use, you're non-conforming, you're grandfathered where you are, kind of like the footprint you are. And that's what that is telling.
But couldn't part 2 also be utilized in a situation where you had those non-conforming uses? But because of the age of the structure, it was falling down. And repairs are limited to 50% of the assessed value. If the repairs are more than that, then that non-conforming use can't be there.
Right, and you know why they're doing that is, because somebody, and we have seen this, you can't just go and dump $1 million in there just so you can keep your grandfathered use there. It's saying, let's be reasonable. We're gonna let you maintain the building. You can replace the window, you know, oh, the siding's rotted, we'll let you put that on. But you're not gonna go out there and dump $1 million in there so this use never ever goes away. You can maintain it, we'll let you keep that use there and you can maintain it, but you're not doing that. And you know where there's a really good example in Jacksonport by a creek. I remember, and I drive by it all the time. Back in the day, it was a really, really old structure. It was the log chinking and the chinking was falling. It was log with chinking. It was falling out. It was falling in the river. The roof was caved in. That thing was gone. And it was that way forever. And somebody went out there, poured a foundation, propped it up, put windows, put a roof, and you had literally a brand new building. You're never gonna get rid of that non-conforming use when you do that type of stuff, right? So they're saying, we gotta be reasonable. We're gonna let you keep using it, but we have to put some limits on there. And that's what it's telling you.
Right. Does that make sense, Denise?
Well, I kept rereading it and putting the use in and then reading it the way that it is, and I think it just got jumbled and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Just by reading it, which is really bad for me, that I couldn't zero in on.
And see, I was just seeing it as the loophole for us for a non-conforming structure.
It actually protects us on those non-conforming structures.
But I mean, it allows us to potentially get rid of that non-conforming use of structure, even though we're restricted by state law. This is kind of like that loophole. Well,
Well,
if it just gets too old, that it eventually is gone.
yeah, if there's a non-conforming use in it, because if it's the non-conforming structure, we can't touch it anymore.
Right.
We used to be able to, not anymore. So I think it's so much easier to read when you see it all together in a book and you're looking at, you know, because I'm looking at the whole thing and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, what is it? You know, but when you're seeing bits and pieces like you're reviewing, it's kind of hard to get the big picture.
Okay, interesting conversation.
It is, and I will say Sister Bay does not have a lot of non-conforming uses. We do not use this section very much at all. But it does cause some, the way the code is written now, we do have some issues, like if you remember the Rainbow condominium, the guy who had the shed by the cedars, he wanted to add on to the cottage. There's so many different parts of the code that were conflicting. One said you could do this, one said you could do this. This cleans it up. You're non-conforming, this is where you go. This is what's gonna govern. And it makes life easier.
Anything on page 23? 24?
I gotta check this here. I have dimensional provisions. We're gonna make that standards.
25? 26? Did you want to say anything here? Okay, 27? You said you were done, Skip.
Well, I'm done with my notes, but I was just thinking back on, because we had a discussion last time about woodland overlay and the space around driveways and houses. But Julie and I never had any further conversation.
I have something to say.
Oh, page 27, okay.
Let's go to 26.
Okay,
Very up at the top there. That's not per statute, that's per Julie, okay? So you can change that, but one thing I have found is if you don't have very clear rules on what is remodeling and what is allowed,
I'm sorry.
you get the Taj Mahal, you know, you really do. They start as builders all the time, and I still get it all the time, and they still think it. Builders think if they rebuild, well, can I just rebuild it one wall at a time? So they have a brand new structure when they're done? No. That's not what so this makes it very clear. You can't, don't tear the whole roof off, and don't replace a wall. And then the next wall and the next wall, and then take the roof off and replace the whole roof. You've got a brand new building. We're not gonna allow that to happen. That's not remodeling. That doesn't get rid of non-conforming structures. So it just cleans it up, because we don't have standards on what is a repair, what is remodeling. So it just cleans it up. That people you may want to change that in the future, I don't know. But I know how difficult it is to enforce it when you don't have a definition for remodeling or repair.
My chuckle was that in our village that I came from, we had this battle and somebody remodeled a house by saving 6 feet of one front wall.
I've seen that too, Skip, over time.
And it was basically a tear down. But yeah,
Yeah, and then it's a huge fight. And how do you win that unless you have clear standards on what is remodeling and what is repair?
page 27.
So in 27, we had talked about how at the last meeting, how some people felt that Countryside was a residential district. So to make it consistent with the future land use map, I just added that line, the very last line that says, this district may appear as a residential land use on the comprehensive plan's future land use map. That's why that's on there. I still view it as a rural or an agricultural district, but it does allow homes. It would at least protect us if somebody said the map was not consistent with the zoning map was not consistent with the future land use map.
So under in the red, last sentence of C, which I think Steve was talking about last month or whatever, that the applicant shall pay the costs of such consultation. And I'm not saying that I necessarily disagree with that. But this is if they want to go beyond what we're allowing them to do, a certain,
Mhm.
you know, for the driveway, area for the driveway and for the house and everything. And if they want to go above and beyond that, it is their responsibility to pay a professional to prove to us that it won't be detrimental. Is that
That is correct, and that is consistent with what we do in the bluff protection overlay, in the
Okay.
shoreline area. We say, this is what the code allows. If you wanna cut more than that, come to us with a cutting, we call it cutting plan in our code. Come to us with a cutting plan, and it says it has to be prepared by a registered professional for however it meets. I'm pretty sure God, now you guys got me thinking, did I double check to make sure that's how the other one read? I'm pretty sure I did, but I'll double check again.
I think this copies what I'd seen elsewhere.
Yeah, I thought I got, just kind of copied it to make sure I had the exact same language. Yeah, and I know that people are like, well, why should they have to pay that? Well, do you want the village to pay for you to do your development? Taxpayers shouldn't pay for that.
And it seemed like Steve was upset because it was an orchard, they have a lifespan in an orchard. And he didn't wanna have to pay somebody to come in and address that or whatever. I mean, I don't really remember because he was going for quite a while, so.
So Laurel, you're thinking, he was looking at, okay, let's think about that. So he's looking at like, hey, this is an old orchard, it's fallen down, it shouldn't be woodland. Why do I have to pay somebody to come in and let me
Yes.
cut down my orchard?
Yes, I think that's what he was saying,
That's a good point.
and an orchard has a lifespan.
Yep, that's a good point.
And that's dealt with elsewhere related to disease and other stuff that allows removal.
That's right. That's right. It talks about you can remove dead, dying or diseased trees. That's a good catch. That's right.
Does he have to have, or does someone have to have?
It doesn't require
Evidence?
forester to do that.
But I
No.
mean, well, you could just cut them down and say, well, they were dying, and who's gonna challenge you once they're down?
You know what, I would, if somebody went in and they clear cut a 500 by 500 thing, said they were dying, you know, for one thing, I'd look at their photo and I'd be like, well, why isn't any tree around that 500-foot square dead? Wow, this is really weird that bug or beetle only, you know, has it perfect.
Yeah.
GPS coordinates keep a straight line, you know? But, I do tell people when they call me because, you know, when I started, there was a lot, we ran into some pretty good cut downs. And I tell people all the time, you know, if you don't wanna get in trouble, you know, cause I talk to them about why we have the rules and everything. I'm like, you know, if you don't want somebody, and I tell people all the time, I guarantee you, when you start your chainsaw, I'm gonna get a call, and I normally do. So I tell people all the time, I recommend everyone take pictures before you start your chainsaw. And then that way, if there's any question, and if I get a hold of you, you can show me what was there. And a lot of people do. Hey, is this okay? You know, or they'll have somebody, maybe they'll have Dave's out there, or some, tree company out there, who'll look at it and then maybe they'll give me a call. So most people are pretty good about it now. I
Being
think.
somebody couple of years back, like maybe it was your first year here. Didn't know where the property line was and was cutting down stuff on their neighbor's property.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you're doing that, I mean, the rules are there for a reason. I do think these are good rules because it's not like you can just plant a tree and it's all back. I mean, it takes 100 years for some of those trees.
I'm sorry. Just checking again because,
You're a wood guy and you know some of them.
well, I know this whole county was totally clear cut when they were providing wood for steamships. So everything we
yeah.
have today is third generation, but
However, it was wooded and then it was cut. So it was wooded at the beginning.
no, wait. So, my notes for page 27, we're back up under, B, and it really comes down into C a little bit too. We're not dealing with any dimensions from the structure out as a minimum, or
I had the dimension in there and then at the last meeting.
well, we talked, and then you and I were gonna talk afterwards, and we never did. But it was about having that the dimension is good. I mean, you need a certain minimum space, but that dimension should go to the edge of the tree canopy, not.
Okay. Yeah, so
Cause I think you had 30 feet or something.
I had 30 feet and then, okay, so this is a misunderstanding on my part. Mine said 30 feet. You said, well, it should really go to the canopy.
Cause there was no clarity on, is it the trunk of the tree or is it the canopy?
Right,
And it's the
And then-
canopy that's critical.
and then we were gonna talk, and then when I went back through my notes, I took it that, then we said, no, it should just be measured from the canopy, so then that's why it says in here, let me find it. That,
Beyond
What's
the
it
edge of the
be?
tree canopy,
yeah,
adjacent
But
to
there's
the
no-
building or
But
structure.
that's very ambiguous because the builder needs a certain amount of space to get equipment around it, a new house. And 30 foot's about the minimum.
yeah, but now you're going from the canopy, so here's my tree, here's the edge of the canopy, that's where my house should be now.
But any trees that are left closer are gonna die within 2 or 3 years because they crush the roots.
So what is
So-
it
so
that
what-
you're asking for?
So what I'm asking for is a dimension that we have from the structure of the driveway. And it should say to the edge of the tree canopy. Because that's gonna preserve the trees. If you do it just 30 feet to the tree, to the trunk, you may still have branches hanging over the house that are an issue.
Right, but now it was just like, as long as you're to the edge of the canopy, you're okay.
But what is, there's no.
Right,
no
it-
Trees may be removed beyond the edge of the tree canopy adjacent to a building.
right, so,
So that means that the building is here and the edge of the branches are right here.
yeah,
Insurance companies will probably have a fit with that, but
well, we don't have to do that, I'm just saying, if you're trying to preserve the woodland, that's how I wrote it. I don't know how else to regulate that, you know? 30 feet to the canopy is very arbitrary,
on a 70-year-old maple, it's gonna be 60 feet to the trunk.
yeah. So, 30 feet from a maple. Maybe that
It's
from a maple
different
canopy,
to a maple than a spruce.
that's
or a
that's
cedar.
what I'm getting at, yeah, it's gonna. One's not gonna affect the tree, the other one is. Depending on the tree. If you're building within 30 feet of a canopy. Some trees roots, right? Won't go out that far, so who cares? Yeah, 30 feet is fine. Some, it's gonna go much further. Unless I don't know a better way to say it than to just say from the canopy.
I'm thinking of. How it. Doesn't become a argument.
Yeah. I think we have to think of that.
And I know I'm sensitive to it, because I had the same argument with my builder. Because he killed a couple of trees he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is prevent people from buying the wood lot and clear cutting it, which happens so
Right.
much.
Oh, I get that.
Even in Sister Bay. But we also wanna make sure they can build. And that the branches aren't hitting the house. And falling on the roof and doing damage, we don't want that either. We also wanna make sure we can get light in there and airflow, so they don't have mildew and moldy walls.
I'm just trying to think of what, is a minimum balance. It's probably gotta be that 20 to 30 feet. With a
If you're
canopy
going
edge.
20, but if you're going 20 to 30 feet from a canopy edge. You can't build on a lot, I mean, I have a tree here, canopy comes out 30 feet and it has to be 20
No,
feet.
meaning from the structure to the canopy edge. Of,
But you're not gonna be able to build on a lot. Right, so hear me out, okay, let's say there's a tree.
Draw it,
What?
draw it.
Draw it, okay.
I was gonna ask Skip to draw.
I think you find out what a bad artist I am.
I draw all the time. and I'm-
Okay, so your side yard setback is,
In this situation, we're gonna put that tree right by the property line. How big is the canopy?
well, the whole thing's a forested area, a woodland area, so the whole thing's trees.
Yeah, but let me just, so,
So you gotta start with where you're gonna
Here's
put
what's
your
wrong.
house.
what, how far do the branches go out? How far is the can? 30 feet, maple?
Well, it depends whether it's heavily wooded or open grown.
Oh, that's true.
In this case, the tree canopy is 30
Well-
feet from the trunk. In this example.
Okay.
I have a 100 foot wide lot, okay? If I'm allowed to go to the canopy. I can have a 40 foot wide house. If I now have to go 30 feet from the edge of the canopy. I can't build.
Or you have to take the tree down. I mean, that's the opposite side of it, is that what we're doing is trying to limit the tree removal. But in certain cases, you have to remove some trees to build a house. If your lot's fully wooded in the woodland overlay.
And that tree could be on the neighbor's lot, not yours, the way it, in this example,
You're right, you could be using your neighbor's canopy to meet your setback.
yeah.
But if you're going, if you're requiring a setback from the canopy, I don't think you can build on a lot. You know, if you let the house go, here's my tree canopy, here's my tree canopy, here's my trunk. I can build here, right?
Without damaging the trees.
Right. But now if I have to require a setback from there, and this is all I can build. That's gonna do some damage. Not to the tree, I'm saying people are gonna freak out. Cause let's face it, there's, in a woodland area, you're not gonna have where this is all cleared out and the only trees are over here. It's gonna be like this, right?
Or the whole thing is soft trees. And
Yeah.
then that's what you're removing. You're trying to decide how big a footprint of trees you have to remove.
Right, and I'm saying, let them go in here. And that's what they can build. But now if I have to have a setback from the canopy. You don't have a lot of room.
Right, you end up taking down more trees.
You take down more trees, so. If you just say you can't be beyond the canopy, if, you can build up to the canopy. You can keep the trees and you still have a buildable area. Whereas if I say you have to be 30 feet from a canopy, they're taking down more trees, which is counterproductive to the woodland area.
It is, but you talk to a builder and he's not gonna be able to build right to the tree canopy edge.
They're gonna have to get a cutting plan, they're gonna have, well, I don't know. I don't know, cause I've.
I
seen
finally,
it both
I
ways.
finally get. Where you're, and I heard the words coming out of your mouth, but now I truly understand. And,
Cause they
but
can't.
that's a
get in-
determination though, that the homeowner and the builder will have to have. Right, and they will have to make the determination. So I think it's out of our hands, is the way that this is clicking in my head. That they will have to determine the best spot for the structure to go. And how many trees they're going to have to remove to get their equipment in there, to get the structure in there, or whatever. I think that's beyond our role, is kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not saying you can't remove trees to build a house. We're just saying. You can't go beyond the canopy and open it up.
Okay.
And I will say this. I built a house in a completely wooded lot. And we should have cut more trees down because we had branches hanging over. You can get in there and do it. It's a matter of preference too.
It's functionality also. I mean, this is actually how you and I met.
Did we?
Yes,
Did I give you a violation?
no, it was about the layout of the house on the lot.
Oh, that would have been hilarious if you didn't remember.
Oh, that's a good laugh.
Let you get your laugh.
Tree cutting violation.
No, but I did have a map presented to you with which trees were coming down, because we had
Would,
woodland and.
what, yeah,
and-
I remember that. Oh, yeah, you had like, it was an octagon type house?
It's a roundhouse, yeah.
Yeah, you were really good. He literally marked every tree that was coming down. But I also told you you had to.
Right. And then I argued for about 4 more.
And I went out there and I looked at all your trees. You had a septic, you were abandoning,
It had been abandoned.
Had
We've
been
been on
abandoned.
sewer for 25 years.
and you were moving your driveway. Were
Yeah,
you?
because we had 2 entrances. You didn't give us that.
Sorry.
So this is why I'm sensitive to the space around the structure as they're building it, what they need, because even though we tried to keep it tight, they still kill trees. With hitting them with equipment. That's the other thing I've often wondered in the codes here is why we don't require fencing on the edge of wooded areas. To keep the guys from just destroying stuff. A lot of towns do.
Fencing on the edge of the woodland?
Hmm.
Well, we want wildlife. It's a passageway for,
But during construction,
oh,
Oh, just something
a
temporary.
boundary that keeps the equipment and other stuff from just knocking over more trees because they need room to turn.
I would say this, though, Skip, and let's use your property as an example. Where we go out there and we try to be reasonable with you and did let you take some trees out to make sure you could maneuver in there. So I mean, my goal was to make sure you didn't clear cut that lot.
Right.
Yeah, and it worked.
Well, I
So-
didn't clear cut it either.
Remember, a lot of people do.
I get that, yeah.
And people should be able to do, to a certain extent, what they want with their land. It's just that, what we're saying is, this is one area that, if you're in this woodland area, we're really concerned about these. Go cut your tree somewhere else and, but this woodland area, we've got animals coming in and out, this is part of a greater woodland community, and we have to
It's
watch it
somewhat of
here.
a eco,
Yeah, we had raccoons living in the house until they got it totally closed in. They've taken up residence.
So what do you wanna do with this section? Leave it or, and I'll be honest with you too, if you look at those woodland areas, well, now Steve, you said you're in the woodland area, right?
Neighbors.
Yeah, we're next door neighbors.
Oh,
But mine's not marked woodland.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not in the overlay.
No,
Yeah, I
not in
was-
the overlay.
I was gonna say, you're not, cause what I was gonna say is if you look at that woodland area, you don't have a lot of homes out there. There's not a lot of residential lots out there.
Hmm.
The majority of that is that area that we've already done protections on behind that old Keith Garrow subdivision with the wetlands and stuff. A lot of that, isn't, I'm not gonna say never to be built, but likely not to be built for any of our lifetime, I bet. A majority of that. But your areas are not subject to this. Your areas are subject to what we call, there's shoreline cutting rules, and then there's beyond the shoreline cutting rules. That's where you are.
Yeah, it's the general thing. So off of Country Lane to the north and east, how far is that buffer before the woodland overlay? Is that 300 foot? Then I'm back to your woodland overlay map, but
What was the question?
I was just trying to get perspective off of Country Lane to the north and east with the woodland overlay. Is that non-overlay area about 300 feet deep also, just like the B ones? Off of 57,
Yeah,
okay. So, cause we've got, there's a fair amount of development going on there right now. One of those projects we just approved last.
Oh, that new single family home.
Yeah,
they would fit in the yellow on the map, not in the woodland area.
okay. Yeah, I was trying to get a,
That woodland area is a lot of wetlands,
A lot of drainage.
yeah, well, that's part of that whole area, the trains that took out the foundation on that blue house on.
Yeah.
South Bay Shore, at Little Sister Road.
yeah, so it makes sense. You're trying to protect that area because you don't want development. the more fill you put in an area, it's displacing that water, it's gotta go somewhere. We gotta watch what happens.
Back to what we were doing here.
I think we were done.
Yeah, I'm not gonna push it harder. I think it's not clear, but
Well, I tell you what. If you have any ideas, I wanna make that more clear. You can email it to me by Tuesday morning at 8. And we'll see if maybe we can put it in.
December 23rd.
I wasn't gonna turn my computer on, but I will for you, Skip.
yeah, we'll just see how it goes. With interactions.
She can
and-
I would say this, if it doesn't work, we
Yeah,
we
we'll just
would,
modify again.
yeah, and again, you know, this is on there, and if it were me and I went out to site and there was one tree that was preventing something from happening, I'd be like, okay, take it down, but, you know.
Bill Roof already knocked it over, so wouldn't be
Yeah.
there.
Well, and that's why a lot of times we want to go out there and look at it before they start breaking ground. Okay.
Right.
Okay, you will make all the changes.
So. What else matters to be placed on the future? Oh, no, annual permit log.
Can I just ask you a question? So do
Yeah.
those text amendments then go to public hearing in January with your map?
Yes.
Okay, guys, so here's my permit log, and I have to tell you, I'm not done issuing permits and I'm not done cleaning this up, so the stuff in red is some stuff that I need to finish working on the file, okay? There's one in white, which is going to hearing in, Sarah, do you wanna look at a copy?
Do I?
No.
No, thank you.
Um. Anyway, so, but you can see, we've had. I don't know about you guys, but I think this is a lot of permits in a year. Double sided. No permits were denied.
You used a lot of ink, the yellow.
Well, it's not. You know why? This is our log, how Sarah and I keep track, because when we're done with that file, it's yellow, means we're done.
Okay.
And I had to print it off for you, and I wasn't about to go and take all that yellow off, because it was like, I kid you not, I think it was 5/16 when I hit print. So it's like, this is what they get. So, you know, people talk sometimes about how harsh we are and we deny them. You look at this, there's not a single, this is all the applications. There's not a single application that was denied this year. We find a way to work with them. And I don't think when people hear complaints, they don't realize that. But you're always trying to find a way to help somebody get their project approved.
Or if the plan commission approves something that's illegal,
Remember all
Which
which we did,
Just 2 years.
the plan commission just did.
remember all the work we did on that Dominion? Country Lane,
Yeah,
never finished it.
it's for sale.
They put it up for sale.
Yeah.
What is that?
I warned
That
I warned you
barn
about that guy.
Barnuminium.
Yeah.
And the daughter. That guy's daughter was a real estate agent and she had it listed for sale. And it was just a ridiculous amount and nothing was done inside. So then they took it off the market. So I don't know what's going on with it now. But it's not finished.
I wonder if it's
And
sold.
he was so ornery when he was here.
I think.
I think, you know, a lot of people don't like going through the process, but that's a good reason of why you're doing it.
Well, and I looked up, I'll talk to you later.
Okay. So. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these permits, we had a lot this year from Frontier. For the fiber project that they're doing.
And so why are some of it in black font and some of it in red?
Red are those files where I'm still cleaning up.
Okay. Well, that's still a lot, Julie.
Has Hoffman started that project?
No,
But he's got a sign out there.
he hasn't started on.
Yeah, there is a sign up
I
there, but I
was
never go back on that road.
curious about
Who?
the sign.
Richard.
Hoffman.
My albatross from the first meeting.
Yeah, that was,
But rightfully so.
yeah, that's, unfortunately. Sometimes we inherit. Bad decisions or mistakes and we have to live with them. I know there's one that we approved while I was here that had the wrong setback and I feel terrible about it. And I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, why did they approve? Wasn't it good? That one, I think it was, they didn't catch it the first time.
So how does the builder's sign work on a project where the sign is not on the site that's being built?
It has to be on the
Yeah,
site
it's
that's
too
to be
big.
built and it's limited in size. You should wait till after January 5th and report that.
Assume their compliance.
Does he own that property?
She doesn't work this time of year.
She's seasonal and part-time.
Yeah, okay.
She won't start back up again until about April, end of March, beginning of April.
Cause I'm presuming that's the builder that's gonna do the project that has a sign right out 42
Does Hoffman own that property? Where the sign
under a
is?
different ownership.
Okay,
Those properties are all listed, they're all his, but they're under.
Yeah,
different
I think,
ownerships.
I think on that construction sign rule, I think it does say it has to be on the site.
Well, that's not.
So you're sharing this, is there anything that you wanna go into detail about, or?
No, it's just that, a couple of years ago, we talked about this and then I was trying to do it monthly and then we tried to do it every 6 months. I had it on the agenda a couple times, wasn't able to get it, and I wanted to make sure before I left that you did get the annual permit log. So, there's no concerns, there's nothing, but I will say this though, there's a lot of work here, a lot of it went through our commission.
You should have the numbers. What's blue mean? I mean, that's easy, put in another column, you stick in a number.
Yeah, we should.
But I mean, because then we would know, I mean, because they're all different sizes.
Well,
you know,
my,
The boxes, so it's not like there's 8 on a page or, they vary.
yeah, my initial goal was to have a whole different system. So when I started, we didn't keep track of permits that were issued. What was coming in, the type of permit or anything, what we would do is if we did issue a regular zoning permit, it was on a clipboard. And one of the things that I look at is, I need to know how many conditional use permits are we issuing, how many sign permits, how many of this, how many of that, because I'll tell you what, if 50% of your permits are conditional use permits, you probably should be changing your code. Cause you're requiring everything to go through a public hearing, so I like to track that kind of data, I find it very helpful. And same thing here, if everyone's getting a permit for a mailbox, which we don't get permits for, you gotta change your code, so anyways, so I wanted to, and then I also like to know how much are you collecting and what are your fees, because if you have 20 conditional use permits you're issuing and each one is $500 and it was over the course of 20 meetings, I got a problem. The fee isn't covering the cost of the meetings, so I track data like that. So we at least got this. This was a good start. We started doing this in 23. But now Sarah, I know when she's writing receipts, she is tracking, is this something that's going to plan commission or not? So we have some better data, but yeah, in a perfect world, this would be a totally different system. With numbers, Denise, I agree. It'd be a little check mark, conditional use permit, or was it regular zoning permit? Was it a sign? Was it a home? Was it an addition? Was it a deck? That would be great. But I will say we've made progress.
Okay.
It's still old school.
So what do we have,
Matters to be placed on a future agenda referred to committee official or employee. Other than the public hearing and, the, wellhead protection overlay.
For me.
Or, did you write down anything other than those two?
I just had the text amendments and the map would go in January. And I would give Megan a heads up on the wellhead protection. And let her know that that's coming in the future, because she's gonna, I know she doesn't have time right now. When it gets warmer in the winter, utilities gets busier, cause now they can get out and do those locates. So, but to give her a heads up on that.
Okay. Alright. With that being said, is there a motion to adjourn at 7:35?
So.
Motion by Heidler, second by Harp, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Now that we're done, you guys would not believe the beautiful flowers I got.